Hey guys, welcome back to my Dear PyGui tutorial series. In this video, we're going to talk about the parent stack system and how it works. It's a pretty simple system, but I do know some people have asked about it, and it can be a little confusing if this type thing is a little new to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this little example that I made that creates a window with, button, 2 tab bars, and some radio buttons. So if you look at the code, this is how it would be written, where we create the window, the button, tab bar, and you can kind of see the hierarchical, whatever. You get the point. Structure of the GUI. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the simple module. We're not going to use it, and we're going to write this using the more explicit method, which would be, see if I can comment this out. That's not working. Okay, just gonna delete it, but we'll start here. So instead of using the context managers, we are going to create this without them. And then I'm going to explain what every bit of this is doing. So actually, let's do this. Copy this in. Remove all of that. So add tab bar and add tab and hopefully you can kind of see what those widths were doing, those context managers. They were automating this end process. So let's make sure we get the same result. And we do. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what's really going on here. So we have this thing called the parent stack. All right, and I'm going to draw that here. And basically what happens is when it's time to add a widget, I'm sure you've noticed that every widget begins with the words add, unless you've been using context managers, in which case the containers don't have that. They just have the name of it. They have with window, with group, with tab bar, stuff like that. But if you're not using the simple module and the context managers, they all have add. So when we first created that window, let's see, choose a different color. You create this window, which we call W. And there's a few things to note about windows. They are what we consider a root item. So I'll put a little R here. And they are also a container. So what that means is root means it doesn't need to have a parent. Actually, it can't have a parent. So it doesn't need to look at this parent stack. Container means, it can contain other items. But because it's a container, it will get put into the parent stack. So in this case, we would have, keep my colors consistent here. W. Created a window, and now the parent stack, which, just to clarify, now the parent stack has one item in it. Now, when we go to add the button, which, right here, what happens is you go to create the button, and it is not a root. So because it's not a root, it needs a container. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at the parent stack and see what the top item is. In this case, it's window. So it knows that its parent is window. And what happens is it gets placed here. And it belongs to the window. So I can erase that now. Now, the next item we add is the tab bar. And the tab bar, I think we called it TB, so I'll do TB. tab bar is also not a root item. The only root items are windows and some of the debug tools and things like that that don't make sense to belong to a window. So anyway, tab bar is not a root item, but it is a container. So it does get placed here. Now, because it's not a root item, it has to have a parent. So actually, before I put that, I should have said it looks at the parent stack, says, hey, there's my parent, the top item is a window, and it puts itself here. Ooh, wrong word. TB. Okay, but like I said, it is a parent itself. So the next thing we add is tab 1. So we'll call it T1. And again, it's not a root, so it has to look at the parent stack. It looks and it says, okay, tab bar's clearly my parent, and it's also a container too. So kind of the same process, T1, and it's also a container. And again, this process repeats to where, I'm gonna change colors. Actually, no, I'm not. This process repeats. The next item is checkbox 1. Same thing. It goes here and it looks at parent stack, because actually T1 should have been placed there. Says, okay, I belong to T1. It puts itself here. Now, the next important part is we want T2 to be next. And that second tab does not belong to T1. So if you were to just create tab 2, which again is not a root, it's going to look at the parent stack, it's going to see tab 1, which that's not our intention. Our intention is that it should belong to the tab bar. So you need to get this item out of here, and that's what the end command does, is it pops an item off the stack. So once you've called end, this will be gone. And then when you actually go to create this second tab, it looks at the tab bar as the top item on the stack, and it puts itself there. And again, same process for the second checkbox. Let's see, that would be C. And the next item was a radio button, and that needed to belong all the way back to the window. So again, you can call end and pop the tab bar off of the parent stack. And then you're back at the window. You add your radio button, and you are back here. So that's what's going on here. All these ends is just popping things off the stack. Window gets added, button gets added to window, tab bar gets added to window, gets added to the parent stack, tab looks at the parent stacks. You get it. And that's what this whole situation with end is. Now, the simple module includes some helpers with automating this, not only with automating the end part of it and the popping off the stack, but it also just makes the code a little bit easier to read, actually a lot easier to read. So that's where you'd say with this, remove that end, with tab bar, move that end, tab. So hopefully you appreciate these context managers, because for a while early on we did not have them. Some people created some, but we now officially include them in the simple module. And that is how the parent stack system works. Now there is one other thing to talk about when it comes to that. Let's go back to our canvas. If at some point after the GUI is already running, so the parent stack's empty because it's already been popped off and the UI is running, what if you want to add an item? And if you go to add a button, let's say at runtime, I go to add a button, close button 2. And obviously there's nothing on the parent stack, right? So somehow I need to tell this where it needs to go. And that's where there's two different keywords available for, I want to say, all the widgets. And that's before. Actually, let's do parent. There's parent. And there's before. So what these do, let me pick a better color. I'm getting tired of green. What these do is, because like I said, at runtime, there's nothing on the parent stack. B2 doesn't know where to go. If you pass it the parent keyword, what it'll do is find that item if it exists, that container item, and insert it at the end of that container's list of items. So for instance, if I was to create this button 2 and say its parent is T2, what'll happen is it'll insert itself here. Now, that's fine. Sometimes you may want to pin to the end, but what if you actually want to insert it into a certain location inside of that container? So for instance, maybe I want to put it between button and tab bar on the main window. What you can do is, instead of using parent, you can use before. And what you do there is you just say which item you want this item to come before. So if I want it to be inserted into here, I would just say before TB, and that would work. So for example, let's create this real quick. It's mostly for runtime, so let me make sure it actually works before calling this, but it should. I don't see any reason it shouldn't. So we'll call it B2, and we'll say before TB. Yeah, let's make sure that works. That did not work. So, like I said, that is for runtime adding. So let's verify that that actually works. So we are going to show debug so that we can run commands at runtime. So let's see. Let's try this at runtime. So if I do this, there you go. It gets added there. Now let's say instead I want to add a third button to, let's show you how the appending works. Instead of before, we're going to use parent, and we want it to end up here. So there you go. So that's pretty much it for the parent stack system. That is how it works. And next time we will go a little bit further into some other details on how PyGui works. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please leave us a like and subscribe.